Oh, shit. This is where the fun begins, guys.
In this series, we're going to be taking a look at every single Hiya Exquisite basic figure in the Godzilla line. Every repaint, reissue, 2.0, whatever they put out, we're going to be taking a look at them all in release order. Let's get started.
Finally, after 10 years, let me repeat that, 10 years, a whole fucking decade, an articulated MUTO action figure. It's honestly kind of baffling how it took this long to get a figure like this. And did Hiya deliver on the 10-year-long wait? Overall, I'd say yes, with a few small caveats. Let's get into it. Today we are finally taking a look at the Hiya Toys Exquisite Basic Female MUTO from Godzilla 2014. The first Hiya Toys Godzilla 2014 figure, as well as the first officially licensed MUTO action figure ever. There's been a few Bandai vinyls. There's been a few, I believe it was Bandai Destruction sets way back in the day that all featured MUTO to some degree, but highly articulated with multiple points of articulation. This is it. This is the first and still only representation of MUTO, again, officially on the market. All right, enough of the formalities, enough of the bullshit. Let's get right into the figure here. Starting off with the detail. Top to bottom, this figure has this very natural insect look to it. It has all this incredibly fine, natural textures sculpted into it. I mean, the transition from the more flesh-like ripples to the more beetle-like smoothed armor plating. Then you get to the underbelly. Just look at all that detailing hidden underneath the figure in places you would never see. Especially that egg sac there. Just look at that. Looks fantastic. The feet, I suppose you would say, have this nice padded texture look to them. And then these claws, talons, appendages, whatever you want to call these things, also have this nice smooth, almost plated texture to them, just like the top of the head here. I mean, the texturing is just incredible. This is unlike anything that Hiya has put out yet. Just look at that head sculpt. It's very authentic to the film. It's eye-catching. This is a display piece for sure. Even the paint, Hiya really outdid themselves with the paint job on this figure especially. My best guess is that this figure is cast in a lighter gray, as seen down here by the feet, and then airbrushed in multiple layers of darker gray patterns to really give this natural fade of different shades of gray. Then they went in and did some very light dry brushing of lighter grays, almost browns, as well as some rustic brown washes applied throughout the figure in very specific spots. I mean, just look at that fade on the lower jaw. This paint job, I mean, it's incredible. I don't know how else to put it. The MUTO have very unique eyes. They're not traditional eyes, so you're not going to get pupils necessarily. They're very alien in design, but they really captured that vibrant, bright red, almost like an LED in the head. It looks incredible. And inside the mouth, we're going to have this very subtle, dark red pink on the lower jaw as well as the tongue. In terms of sculpted detailing and paint work, I don't know how else Hiya could have improved beyond this. This is outstanding for an articulated action figure. This looks about as good as the Spiral Studios statues. Now, let's have a nice, decent discussion about articulation, because this is by far the most controversial aspect of this figure. And for a lot of people, the articulation really took the wind out of their sails on this release. So, is it as bad as some people might say? Let's take a look. Now, the most notable thing about this figure is, as you could probably already tell, this figure is primarily dominated by hinges, pinned hinges at that. So, movement's going to be a little finicky, a little tricky, but I understand what they were doing, and in a lot of ways, I do really like it. But let's start up at the head, because the head, surprise, surprise, does have articulation. So the head's actually going to be able to hinge down and hinge up, and they've cleverly designed the back of the head here. It is cast in a soft plastic, and it kind of compresses down into the body like that. So that's nice. You're not going to get any movement side to side, but you are going to be able to get it to look up about that far and down about that far, and it's going to retain its natural silhouette. And as I showed earlier, the mouth does open and the tongue is on a hinge, but it is very, very tiny. You're basically not going to get much movement out of that tongue. I mean, just look how absolutely microscopic it is. All right, now let's talk about these legs. So the shoulders here on the front arms are going to be on very large pinned hinges. You're going to be able to splay them out pretty far. And as you can see here, here's the cut for the hinge. So you can get them back into the body about that far. And then they're on a pin, so you can swivel them all the way around. That's going to be very, very similar to the rest of these arm structures. So here at the, we'll call it the first elbow, that is a pinned hinge, so you can swivel it all the way around, and you can hinge it up about 90 degrees. About 90 degrees, and you can hinge it back so it's perfectly straight. That is going to be the same down here at the secondary elbow, but you can swivel it all the way around. You can get a hinge down about that far, and you can hinge it up about that far. The sculpt does prohibit it just a little bit, so if you were to hinge it this way, you would have to maneuver it around this little elbow piece here. And then the little claws down at the bottom are also on pinned hinges, so they can hinge out all the way around, and they also will be able to rotate down there. These middle appendages are going to be very similar, except that up here, you're going to have an angled pinned hinge. So they can hinge out about that far. They can go in about that far, and then you're going to be able to rotate them at a weird angle. But they do swivel all the way around. And then the legs attached below are going to be exactly the same as the front arms, just again at a weird angle on this one. Mine's a little loose right here, but does not affect the articulation whatsoever. You can hinge it out, hinge it back, get it all the way rotated. That's what you're looking at with these middle legs. So we'll hinge these out of the way. Now, the underbelly arms. These are actually going to feature ball joints here where they connect to the body. So they can go out about that far, they can go back about that far. And if you finagle it, you can get it all the way around. And then here at the elbow, these are also on ball joints. They can straighten out about that far, and they can rotate all the way around. These are going to be some of the few ball joints featured on this figure. The waist, I believe, is another hinge, so it can actually crunch a decent amount, and then it can hinge back a fairly decent amount, and then it can swivel. These hip pieces are going to be the only other ball joints on this figure. They can splay out a pretty decent amount. Oops, mine likes to pop off. That leg at least. No problem at all, it's a ball joint. Goes back in about that far. And then they do kick and rotate all the way around pretty easily, as long as they don't get tangled up with the legs. And then these are going to be the same thing that we've seen on the other figure, or the other legs, excuse me. Hinge, pin, hinge, pin, hinge, pin. So you can straighten them out about that far. I wouldn't go too far, as the pin has popped out. I don't think you're supposed to straighten it out quite that far, but they can only hinge back about that far. And these ones, same affair. You can straighten them out all the way. They can hinge about that far. Oh, and then, yes, this can rotate. It's a little awkward because of where that pin is, but these get full rotation. And then the feet down here swivel up and forward and back like so, and then they swivel all the way around. Given the design of this figure, I completely understand why they went with hinges. These legs are very long, very thin, very lanky, and the way that they connect to the body and whatnot, it lends itself more to hinges than ball joints, but I do think we could have seen more ball joints in select areas. These shoulders up here, I don't really see why they need to be hinges. These shoulder pieces, I kind of understand why they are hinges, although a little more movement would have been nice. The feet back here, this I have an issue with. I don't really agree that these should have been hinges. These are very limited when you're getting poses. You don't get any ankle tilt out of these. The fact that these little claws can rotate below the peg means that you can kind of get a pseudo ankle tilt, but not on the actual feet. Now, it's not really an issue in terms of stability. The fact that this thing has 6 legs means that no matter what pose you get it in, unless you're trying to get it on 2 legs, this thing's going to be sturdy no matter what pose you get it in. But it would have been nice to be able to get an ankle tilt out of these back legs in case you wanted to get the legs splayed out to an extreme degree. In terms of the hinge joints themselves, I'd say really my only nitpick is how inconsistent the tolerance is on them. I heated this figure up right before this review, and these hinge joints are still a little tight in some areas and pretty loose in others. I think the hinges would have gone well a lot better with people if they were more finely tuned. Hey, what's going on? This is a quick addition that I'm making while I was filming the B-roll for this figure. The legs. There is something I want to talk about the legs that I forgot to mention when I recorded the video. And that is that these back legs in particular have a sculpted preference in how they're positioned. What do I mean by that? Well, this is going to be easier shown up here at the thighs. The sculpt favors a very specific pose, and any other pose will break up the sculpt of the figure. So the thighs, as you can see here, the cut is sculpted in a way that strongly favors the leg to be posed forward like so. As you can see, that's where the figure is sculpted to be. Just like that. Any other pose breaks up the sculpt. Now, is this really a deal breaker? No, it's not. You're not really going to notice that, and it does not hinder your enjoyment of the figure whatsoever. But this is an important thing to note because down here at the lowest point on the legs, whatever this segment is called, this part strongly favors the leg to be positioned like so. And if you hinge it forward like that, the sculpt does look a bit ugly, especially from the top. So that means if you want the leg kicked back like this and you want the legs supporting it in the only way that you really can get them to be like, does it look bad? No, it doesn't. It just looks a little awkward from the front, or the top, excuse me. And the sculpt also kind of bevels out. If my camera will focus there. So you can see it kind of has this ridge line. That's because, again, it wants to be posed like that, and the sculpt favors that little natural additional bit of plastic. Again, does not affect your enjoyment of the figure, at least not for mine. It's just something to note. I've only really noticed it on these back legs. If the knee does have a preferred position, I certainly can't tell, but you can absolutely tell up here at the thighs. It wants the legs to be pushed up, forward, and kind of beveled out like so, and then it wants these back legs to be positioned like this. That's kind of how it wants the back legs to be. It looks a little weird. You don't have to keep the legs like that, but just something to note, there is a sculpted preference. Anyway, back to the B-roll. And just for fun, have you ever wondered what the female MUTO would look like if it was actually a 2-legged creature? Well, here you go. You can actually do it on the Hiya figure. I am using a stand just for a little extra stability, but it is possible to get the center of gravity just right in a way where this can stand on its own. But with the turntable, it's a little trickier. So I'm using a support stand. But yeah, you can get it in a pose like this. And actually, I think this would have been a pretty cool looking monster like this. All right, let's go ahead and talk size now, shall we? Now, this is going to be a little tricky as, due to the nature of the figure's design, you can kind of get this in various different heights depending on how you've posed. I believe this is close to the figure's true neutral, so this figure is going to stand approximately 6 inches tall, give or take. And in a pose something like this, it's going to be roughly 5.5 inches long. Again, those are very rough estimates. Here's the MUTO compared to the Hiya Toys KOTM Godzilla. This is going to be the same size compared to all of its various re-releases. So yeah, it's pretty small compared to the standard scaling Hiya set for the KOTM figures onwards. I wonder if that means we're going to get a smaller Godzilla to go with it. Here's how the MUTO is going to scale next to a Bandai action figure series figure, a Super 7 Reactions figure, or 2, a Titanic Creations figure, a Hiya Toys Behemoth. No, not that one. We'll get there. A NECA Moth. Oh, please don't fall, please don't fall, please don't fall, please don't fall, please. And a Hiya Toys Moth that surprisingly has not fallen apart yet. And a nice, delicious looking banana. Very ripe looking banana. Oh, yes, that is beautiful looking. So, the Hiya Toys MUTO. Does it stick the landing? Is it worth the wait? Me personally, I would say yes, absolutely. I think this is more than just a novelty of owning a articulated MUTO. I think this is a good articulated MUTO with just a couple odd nuances to it. You do kind of have to force your way through this figure. Those hinges are very tight, and I feel like they didn't need to be that tight. Not on a figure like this. I think even if you were going to get it in one normal static pose and put it on your shelf and never touch it again, this is still a great value, $50. But even as an action figure, I really do see the value here. This is a great figure to own. You can get it in a lot of really fun dynamic poses, especially if you're a photographer. There's a lot of potential here in this figure. I am very impressed with what Hiya did here on their first outing. Now, with that said, there are some areas I would like to see them improve on. Maybe not necessarily in a 2.0 of this figure. I'm very satisfied with this figure. But if they were to attempt something like this, like maybe a MUTO Prime in the future, we're still waiting on the male MUTO. And it's been a while since this figure released now, guys. Like, it's kind of odd that we haven't seen the male MUTO to accompany this figure. Point being, there are plenty of opportunities for improvement, and I would like to see them take that, as they have crafted a great starting point. And all they would need to do is just retool a couple things. Chief among them, for me personally, is I would like to see some ankle tilt on those back legs. That would do a lot for dynamic posing, a lot for stability. I would like to see the tolerances tightened up a little. Well, not quite literally tightened up. That's kind of the problem, is that they're a little too tight. And maybe convert some of these hinges into ball joints. But again, I really don't mind the hinges. I understand why they're hinges. This is a very unconventional design. One that, with all the very specifically shaped limbs, lends itself very well to hinges. I think we're all kind of waiting on the inevitable egg sac repaint, whatever you want to call it. A version where that egg sac is vibrantly red, possibly translucent red painted over. I think that would look pretty cool. The eyes, you could give that some translucent plastic to it. But I don't know what else you could really do with this MUTO. I think the obvious next step is retooling this into the male flying MUTO. But if they were to re-release this figure, I would really hope that this comes with accessories of some kind. Even if it was just the nuke, I would hope it comes with just a little more than a repaint, but I feel like I'm just setting myself up for disappointment here. It seems pretty clear that Hiya has no intention of doing that, but hey, we'll have to see what an inevitable repaint of this looks like. I'm just kind of rambling at this point. This figure is great. I highly recommend it. I love it a lot. It looks great on the shelf. And man, speaking of the shelf, let's talk about how crazy Hiya's display presence is at this point. We now have a full KOTM lineup. We have a full Kong Skull Island lineup. We have part of 2014's lineup. We have a GVK lineup. We technically are already dipping our toes into the GXK lineup. This rollout from Hiya is crazy. And if you have all these various creatures on your display, you're going to have one hell of a diverse display setup going on here. We just have to get through these goddamn Godzilla repaints, because yes, we still have a couple more to talk about. Look forward to that next time, guys. Let me know what your grievances are with this, or if you too very much enjoy this figure. But until next time, guys, see you.